Naughty boy.
First, come have a bath, then go out.
But he has just had a bath.
Any proof?
I have bathed him myself.
But Mom, the germs are laughing because these ordinary soaps are less effective on them. That's why there's new and advanced Lifebuoy.
New Lifebuoy with Active 5 to give you 100% better germ protection from germs.
Any proof?
Mom, it's lab tested. There's 100% proof.
The world's #1 germ protection soap. New Lifebuoy.
Association with MTN. Everywhere you go. Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner. And Lipton, inspiration flowing from nature.
Good morning and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. When bad things happen, they don't come one at a time. They don't and never come one at a time, like enemy spies, but all at once, like an army. Shakespeare may have been right. Just when Ghanaians were wailing over the biting effects of tax, fuel, and tariff hikes, donor agencies announced a withdrawal of aid grants. And this is also just at a time when Seth Terkper shares his sorrows with the nation about serious imbalances in an economy where industry is experiencing negative growth. But what true friend or partners abandon their friends who just got broke? Will Seth Terkper prove his mettle in this crisis of double troubles? We discuss the tension in the largest opposition party, NPP, where some alleged scheming is going on to impose incumbent or Mugabe MPs and leaders is being fiercely fought. You're welcome once again. We'll be right back after this break.
Total expenditure including payments for the clearance of arrears and outstanding commitments from January to August 2013 amounted to 18.3 billion, which is equivalent to 20.7% of GDP, against a target of 20.1 billion or 22.6% of GDP. The outturn was 8.5% lower than the budget target and 18.4%, but 18.4% higher than the outturn for the same period in 2012. The growth in expenditure was mainly due to an increase in interest costs, as I've said already, and in particular, the growth in compensation of public sector employees during the period. Although the performance of domestic revenue from traditional sources have been weak, oil revenue performance for the period under review has been very strong as a result of higher than expected, crude oil price, higher production levels, and higher corporate income taxes from the sector. Therefore, total oil revenue from January to August amounted to 1.2 billion against a target of 788 million. Total revenue and grants for the period was 11.9 billion, equivalent to 13.4% of GDP, against a target of 14.2 billion or 16% of GDP. So there has been a shortfall, as I said earlier on, in our revenue generation. In nominal terms, the provisional outturn was 13.1% than the outturn for the same period in 2012. So again, even though we are not meeting the targets, because of the slowdown in the economy, the performance of revenue is still higher than what we were doing nominally last year.
The Constitution requires that the party officers are elected first. In the case of the polling station executives, the Constitution is silent on that. But the president or the convention would suggest that they are also supposed to go for 4 years, and so their term of office is about ending, just like the rest of the other officers.
Right.
And for that reason, elections ought to be conducted. I see the party, after coming out of the Supreme Court, and the decision being handed down, and the party making a decision through its flag bearers announcement that we are not seeking review. There was no decision that the National Executive's mandate is to be extended by their say-so. We will do that constitutionally, and we are permitted constitutionally to do that. But we have not entered that arena as yet to go through the process of constitutional amendment. That is not in the pipeline. So we haven't done that. As we speak today, the status quo ante remains. That agenda is not on board. A decision was not taken to move that agenda forward. So the status quo remains as you and I speak today. We are working, and the reason why we met is to put our house in order to march forward towards 2016. And we are on course based on what happened today. I think when we started, before we started the meeting, there was agitation. By the time we finished the meeting, we were all happy. There was no more agitation. Everybody was happy. Now that should give you a cue as to where we are going. And we are uniting solidly to march towards the 2016 elections, because Ghanaians are looking up to the MPP to salvage this mismanagement of the human and natural resources of this country.
Thank you very much. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM. We are coming to you live from the Multi-TV studios. This is your Joy News channel. You're watching us in London, elsewhere in Europe on the ABN TV. This is Sky Channel 290. You're watching us also at www.multitvworld/streams and listening at myjoyonline.com, and of course over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. My guests are ready, and we are going to go over the very topical issues, the issues of bread and butter that matter to all of us, affecting almost everybody in the country. And the very first issue we'll be looking at is sort of a double-edged matter. When we have TUC and several other groups fighting the tariff hikes, Setepe tells us about the problems in the economy, the serious imbalances in the fiscal situation at a time when industry, he tells us, is recording negative growth. And we are told also that donor agencies are now withdrawing their donor support. What trouble, what misfortune? How do we get out of it? The solutions are what we are looking for this morning on the show. And later, the alleged schemes within the NPP to impose Mugabe MPs and some leaders, including an early Congress, targeted or scheming at getting Nana Addo back a third time. Well, you're welcome. 1422, that's the text line. You can post your comments. You can post your comments also on our Facebook wall and send them also to Newsfile at myjoyonline.com. Now, my guest in the studio, a regular panelist, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Abdul Malik Kweku Bako Jr. Kweku, good morning and welcome to the show.
Morning, my bro.
Great. The minister The last time, I'm trying to remember exactly when you were here. I think we discussed the economy. Somehow it appears that you have some strength in the area. So he's back. I think more particularly because we also have economic matters to deal with. Mahama Ayarga is the Information and Media Relations Minister. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Great. Abraham Amalaba. When things go wrong, he puts them together. That's the meaning of his name, Amalba. He brings together, makes peace. Let's see if he's got the magic wand for the economic problems that we are facing. Gabi Asare Ochre Dako, Executive Director of the Dankwa Institute. He joins us shortly. He's just being mic'd. Okay, your laughter is heard live. He's laughing in the background. All right, now, gentlemen, we'll be going to the phone lines also to speak to the Finance and Economic Planning Minister. Setepe will be speaking to Anthony Akutose as well. So keep your dials right here and let your messages come in. Okay. I'd like to start with a very small and quite unimportant matter in my view, but which is important to some other people. And we're just trying to discuss among ourselves here whether it is worth even the platform. But because it has received such mileage within sections of the media, we just want to take a comment each from my panelists. Now, Gabi had just taken his seat. Gabi, welcome.
Thank you.
Great. The president is presently in the United States of America. We saw him on CNN doing us proud. But there's a picture that is making the rounds where he stands in front of the huge CNN, signage and takes a photograph, and he's draft in there. And people have been making comments that that is such a big PR failure, and that is demeaning of the country to have the whole president stand in front of a signage of the CNN and take a picture. What do you say to that?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners and viewers. That's quite surprising to me, and I say that because I was personally there, and we had gone to a CNN headquarters at Atlanta to visit the place, and then also to grant them some interviews which they required in their studios. In fact, we had 2 different interviews that the president did at the CNN, after which they conducted us around the entire CNN operation just to show us how their whole system works and etc. And I recall that when we finished the interviews and we were leaving CNN, I mean, the party that saw us off, and this CNN signage is right in front of, it's okay, at the entrance.
I've just looked it up.
Yes, it is at the entrance.
On Facebook.
Yes, it is at the entrance. And the party that saw us off.
If the camera can zoom in on this one so that our viewers can see how it looks like. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the party that saw us off, I think one of them requested for a picture with the president before he entered his vehicle. And then I recall that the president obliged and granted the person that photo opportunity. I also requested for one, and then we had myself, Stan, and some other journalists from the Ghanaian team that went, and then their staff. So people were generally requested because the vehicle was parked just by the CNN signage. And so we thought this was just a simple request for photo ops with some of the people that went with us. And I'm quite surprised that people are making so much an issue.
The substance of the argument is that it's demeaning. It is demeaning for the country.
I don't think so. I don't see how it demeans the country. I mean, CNN clearly is a known global brand, and they are a major media house globally. And we had the opportunity to be there to grant interview, to be able to project our issues and issues relating to Africa. And we thank them for that platform and that opportunity. I mean, living there and giving the staff and then taking some photographs in front of their signage, I don't see how that demeans a country like Ghana. I think that one really has to work very hard to establish that, to just take some photographs in front of CNN head office by their signage demeans Ghana. I don't see how that demeans Ghana.
There are those who say, well, for the sake of the argument, it's all right, he could have it and keep it personally. It's a big PR failure to have put the picture out.
That is where the problem is. The president went out there first for the UN thing, am I right?
That's so.
And I think beyond it, other interactions, some bordering on business and economics.
He's been to a number of universities, interacted with
Yes.
some students.
Yes, but I think also some business and economic interactions. You may confirm it.
You know.
So I asked myself, why is this picture per se on its own? It's no big deal. I wouldn't waste 1 second on it, to be honest with you. Who presented it out there? Who put it out there? Who projected that out there? Obviously came from within the communications network of the presidency. So that's my problem. Now, the substance of his visit, the UN thing, the business economic interactions, the other interactions are all relegated to the background. And out there is a focus on this innocuous picture for public discussion. So I think it's a failure of communication. Some indiscretion in terms of who put it out.
Let me help. Yeah. Let me help. I mean, as I indicated earlier, all of us, people who were around, requested for pictures, and people had their cameras and were taking.
Yeah, so who put it out there? I asked the question.
The pictures, is that okay?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a picture that is put out there by.
Who put it out there? Are you aware?
We will find out.
So it has nothing to do with the officialdom.
Well,
That's exactly the point I want to make.
There were
If
many
it has
people-
nothing
there
to
were
do
many
with
people with-
officialdom, I apologize.
Well,
It
he
means that-
mentions Stan, who was also there, Stan Dogbe.
No.
And I've heard Stan Dogbe suggest that, what's wrong putting it out there? If they felt like putting, he says that they put it out. It's not the only picture. There were a number of
No,
them.
precision.
So they just
Precision.
put everything out.
Precision. Is it officialdom that put it out, or was there somebody on its own?
Right.
Precision. We need to know that.
So we can check on that.
Okay.
We can check on that. But I mean, the point is that several people were snapping pictures, and all of us, took the opportunity.
What's wrong with the president taking it cool and easy, even if he decided that he wanted to take a picture of that and it is put out to the public, AB?
To be honest with you, this is an irrelevant, insignificant matter. And I don't know why you even chose to put it on this, your platform, which is
you came to lead the discussion, didn't you?
So serious. No.
We all agreed that though it was unimportant, we should
I was
have a
silent.
bite at
I
it.
didn't agree to it.
But
So the point
trust.
is, you are already betraying the point. It's insignificant because look, what is the meaning in this? Is CNN an illegal organization? Is CNN a terrorist organization? So why would, if the president decides to take a picture with a logo of the CNN, how should that be demeaning to the country? Indeed, I have seen pictures of presidents who have taken pictures with the United Nations logo. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that you are demeaning the country from where you are coming from. So clearly, Samson, I think that this does not bring bread and butter on the table.
Okay.
So let's go forward on it.
Gabby, is it just a demonstrating, like Kuku says, that it appears that this picture has taken the shine of the most important matters or things that transpired? That is it a demonstration of how petty we can be?
Well, that's assuming that something important happened on the trip, so I don't know. I stand to be corrected. Apart from the pictures.
No, but he addressed the assembly. No. He raised very important issues.
Okay.
He went to the CNN and also spoke about how to collaborate as a world to, and Africa particularly, to fight terrorism. Those are very important issues, and we are told about business discussions.
Okay, we told. Yeah, like I said, it's really, perhaps it looks like a PR gone wrong. I saw that I was tagged on my Facebook, and the link appeared to be an official link. So that I'm not too sure what the point. And that sign is not on top of the roof; it's actually at the bottom of CNN. So you don't have to go to the top of the roof.
No. It's just
No,
in
just
front
asking.
of. No, just in front of the building. Actually, on the ground.
I'm not so sure what
You
the
don't have
big
to go
deal
up.
is. I mean, if you look at Article 60, Clause 8, and the interpretation given to it in Asari and Attorney General, the president is a tourist. I mean, when he's out of the country, there's somebody else acting as president. So he's free to take pictures and enjoy himself. I mean, that's all I can say.
Okay, now let's get to the most important matters. And this show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of MTN. Everywhere you go, Bank of Africa.
It would be interesting to reflect on what he just said about the president being a tourist when he's outside the country. And I just want to ask him. And I just want to ask him when the president is in the UN building and addressing the world, in what capacity does he address the world? As a tourist.
Wow.
It's obviously not for a certain effect.
As a tourist.
Okay. This show is brought to you by MTN. Everywhere you go, Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature. Valex Lease Equipment, your affordable document management solutions. Thank you very much for keeping your dials here. Now, we will be going shortly to speak to the Deputy Minister of Finance, Kweku Rick-Hagan. But let's start with, I'll start with Gabi. Yes, I'll start with you. I've cited some very interesting comments that you've had to pass in respect of these matters. Setepe did what you may call a very sincere analysis of the economic performance. He admits that things are not going on right, that there are problems, but seems to give some indications as to what government intends to do boldly to tackle these problems. And one thing that catches my eye in his economic performance, the speech is about the growth, real and external sector performance and outlook. When you read about growth, he says that in the second quarter of 2013, the economy grew by 6.1% compared to 9.1% in the corresponding quarter in 2012 and 6.7% in the first quarter of 2013. The trend of growth in the second quarter was different from that of the first quarter, in which the agriculture and services sector recorded positive growth rates and industry recorded a negative growth.
I think, well, he was honest to a point. I just thought he could have been a little bit more sincere as to why the donor, is it supporters or partners you call them, countries, are not releasing funds as was expected. And the truth is, it has very little or nothing to do with their own economies. Absolutely nothing. I would say nothing to do with that. Even before they agree on what to give you, usually these things have been approved by their own budget, their own parliaments or whatever, So, and nothing really. If you study the economies of these major countries, nothing dramatic has happened over the last 12 months or so for them to have rescinded on what they agreed to give us. But the fact of the matter is, and I'm saying this with all the information that I have, is that they are not happy with our accountability. And that is really the fact. And they are demanding more accountability. So I think really, if government can be a little more, because usually what they do, a lot of these, because of this budgetary, what's the term? Multi-donor budget.
Multi-donor budget support.
Yeah, budget support. Because of that, it gives government also some flexibility as to what it does with the money. It's not always like they are saying that, look, we're giving you money, use it for this. But when they are also, because of course, all what happens to JIDA, where over 4 years you've spent 1 billion Ghana cedis, ostensibly to create youth employment, and no one can see the impact. when you have a budget deficit of over 12%, 8.7 billion Ghana cedis, a significant part of that in the last 6 months of 2012, and even more significant part of that in the last 3 months of 2012. And you tell us about single spine, and only 2.7 percentage points of that went into wages and remunerations and the rest of it. And up to date, if you look at all the information that's been given to Parliament, there are still serious, if you like, loopholes as to the exact usage of the bulk of the money that has gone into excess, or if you like, above the budget.
Right.
It makes it.
We'll shortly extend this discussion into the tariffs and the calls for a reversal, as it were, or suspension of the implementation.
Yeah.
And we now have government also giving some signs that it intends to cushion the effects of that, even though the minority, the CPP, believe that all of this boils down to mismanagement. That's all it is about. Abi.
I agree that there are challenges, and the Minister for Finance has indicated that. Indeed, he has also made it a point that some of these challenges are as a result of the single spine, the implementation of the single spine. I've heard Gabi just say that.
And the opposition is saying these are matters that they are matters that you refuse to admit, and now you're being forced to come out and now admit them. That is not fair. You should have admitted that all these problems existed. The NPP in Parliament has consistently held press conferences and told the nation that this country was sort of broke.
Oh, the first person
has also said so.
No. The first person who indicated that there are challenges. We don't use the word broke. Broke simply means that something has gone bad. We are saying there are challenges. The first person who used that word was the Minister of Finance. Indeed, and that is an honest minister who would go his way to tell the people of the country that, look, this is the situation in which we find ourselves. So he has done that. He indicates that, are there any bright futures? He says yes. He says that, look, oil revenue is increasing. We are increasingly having higher production. The challenges are going to be temporal. He has indicated that the Eurobond, the process of the Eurobond, as they come in, will be used to partner the DP, that is the development partners side of the argument, the money. And so if we are able to ensure that the development partners come with their part of the money, it will be okay for it. But let me tell you, when the president met his legal team, he indicated that development partners have begun, after the election petition, have begun having dialogue with government, the IMF, the World Bank, and they are ready to, as it were, bring in some money to shore up the economy. I am told just last week that some funds have started trickling in. Indeed, when you speak to the Deputy Minister of Finance, he will tell you that some of the donors partners have started releasing funds. The problem we had, gathering from what the experts were saying, particularly the Deputy Minister of Finance, was that the IMF and the World Bank wanted to know how we got to where we are now with the difficulties. How did we reach this point where there are challenges? And they took their time at the Ministry of Finance to explain to the donor partners how we got to where we are. Indeed, they have prescribed some prescriptions. Subsidies should be removed. We've done that. They talk about utility services. We've increased those things. So the way is now set for IMF, World Bank, and our development partners to come in. These are temporary measures. But why are we in government? We are in government to solve these problems. And the problems will come. It is not yet Uhuru. When you are in government, you shouldn't think that the situation is going to be fluid and that there will not be difficulties. That is why you are in government. And we would take the bull by the horn and resolve the matter.
Mr. Aga, the suggestion is that if we are having donor agencies, very important partners who contribute as much as about 50% to support the annual budget, say they are withdrawing, that's such a serious indictment.
They've not said that.
Such a serious indictment on the government's, economic performance.
I have not heard the donors officially say they are withdrawing. I've not heard that.
I see.
Of course, being in government and tracking donor contributions, I also know that a significant amount of money, and the last time I checked, not less than 188 million United States dollars hadn't been disbursed, and other support programs coming from them. But there's no official, not to my knowledge, statement by them. I don't know whether you have heard them since you are in the media.
I suspect sincerely that economists like Dr. Joe Abe will not be that ignorant to go on to discuss this issue and to say, among other things, like he's reported to have said that the result is that these donors are not disbursing some of the aid to Ghana because they have not been able to come to the same page. And so there is the need to resolve whatever differences in perceptions between the government and the donors as to where we are. First of all, so that the donors will see their way clear to be able to disburse. Dr. Abe warns of dire consequences for Ghana's budgetary outcome for the coming years if the government fails to resolve the impasse with the donors.
Yes, so that's the same point that I'm making, that just to correct it the way that you framed it, that they have withdrawn. They haven't really withdrawn, just that they haven't disbursed also. And clearly there are some issues, and those issues are being discussed, and those issues are being resolved, but they are not accountability issues. They are not accountability issues the way that Gabi has presented it and put it in the context of discussions around JIDA and etc. They are not accountability issues. I think broadly there's a mix of issues that I think is informing the attitude, if I may put it that way, of our development partners. Of course, it is true that they are concerned about our wage bill. No matter what you say, they have consistently, during discussions, raised concern about our wage bill. The way that it has risen astronomically in recent times. And if you look at the compensation to employees to GDP ratio in the sub-region, we are the highest. If you look at compensation to employees,
that's one of their major worries.
That is one
you are spending so much on salaries.
Compensation to employees, because the last time we checked, with the arrears and etc., in 2012 alone, we had spent in excess of 73% of non-earmarked tax revenues for payment of compensation of employees. And so those are the concerns. The other issues is also that because of the energy crisis that we had, starting somewhere in the middle of last year to the end of the year, and then running into the first half of this year, and the failure to get gas from Nigeria, we've had to resort to the use of oil to power the generation of electricity. And government has had to bear these costs. Subsidizing it, supporting the energy ministry with resources through its agencies such as VRA and etc. to be able to generate the electricity needed. And that has also generated a lot of
and that factor you just mentioned about the power problems is what is blamed for the negative growth of the industry sector.
Precisely. So one, we've had to continue generating electricity at a much, much higher cost than if we're taking the gas from Nigeria. And secondly, the challenges with the electricity sector had wide-ranging implications for the entire economy. As you will know, business suffered because people who were rendering services based on cheaper electricity from ECG, and because of the short supply, they will have to rely on generators, will then be producing at a much higher cost, so production costs will increase, there will be inefficiencies, there will be wastages, and etc. And so that had a general impact on the economy. I mean, there are other matters that they raise regarding inefficiencies in the system. And you recall that as far back as the early part of the year, the World Bank and others had initiated an advocacy around us rethinking our entire energy sector. Because it is one sector that is taking in a lot of money. And we need energy to be able to propel our economy. But we also need the private sector involved in the energy generation for us to be able to produce the amount that we need for the economy. And the state clearly doesn't have the resources to go it alone. We need private investors involved. And for them to be involved, they must be assured of some reasonable return on their investments. And if your pricing of energy is artificially low because you are highly subsidizing, then it has an impact on your ability to attract investments to those sectors. So there are a number of issues over which the development partners and government clearly have some fundamental disagreements. And those are the issues that Dr. Abe is referring to. But you see, they are not issues that point to an inefficient government. They are issues that point to disagreements over how to manage your economy. I mean, for instance, the wage bill. Whilst government complains about...
I'm actually looking at the statement, and a part of it, I think, paragraph 13, fiscal performance and outlook. He says that the aim of fiscal policy, as outlined in the 2013 budget, is to achieve fiscal prudence, including sustainable debt limits and a reduction in the budget deficit.
Yes.
Can we say we have done anything about this at all?
Indeed, yes, because initially, at the beginning of the year, we were very clear on the fact that we had run ourselves into a deficit. I mean, my friend Gabi can say whatever he wants to say about it, but we all know how we got to the deficit. And we set ourselves a target of reducing it to about 9%.
We all know.
And we have challenges in meeting those targets because of a number of reasons. One, there's no doubt that we depend largely on certain commodities in terms of our export base, gold, cocoa, and others. For a very long time now, the prices of these commodities have been struggling in the international market. You can't really dispute that. So our source of revenue has been affected. Secondly, we spent the first half of the year under political circumstances that affected confidence in our economy. And there's also no doubt that to some extent...
Haruna Idrisu says that he projects that we lost something in excess of, is it $2 million or $2 billion?
Well, did he contact a malam or what?
Within the 8 months, and that's being questioned.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you are questioning the exact quantum, I can understand that. You can question Haruna's conclusion regarding the exact quantum. But there's no doubt that the 8 months period of wait and see who really is the right government in this country. Should I export the things that I normally export to Ghana, given that we don't know whether this country will survive this election petition? Let me wait till after the Supreme Court has given a ruling before I even go to Ghana. And all that affecting tourism, affecting investor confidence in the country, affecting people's decision to even send goods and etc. All that clearly affected our capacity to depend on domestic revenue generation mechanisms.
Thank you.
Such as
we'll raise the finance minister or deputy finance minister on the line and get to know what the solutions are, because that's what the Ghanaian people are interested now. At the moment, very obviously, people are suffering the pinch. Now, Koku, what do you say? And particularly when we are told about agriculture and the services sector doing, in terms of growth, doing very well. I think the bottom line for the ordinary Ghanaian is, has that improved their standard of living? Have there been jobs? Can they buy what they couldn't buy?
Obviously, out there, if you go onto the streets, they will tell you these statistics not had any impact, positive impact on their standards of living. I mean, of course, I'm not one of those who dismisses statistics coming out from official circles. Of course, we need to be critical about them. But see, this thing about liquidity challenges, I read somewhere that Professor Akosa says that the National Development Planning Commission is broke, that they've had the first, we are in the last quarter, and they've had their funds released to them, the first quarter funds released to them now. We have a challenge with payment of statutory, effective statutory payments to District Assembly Common Fund, the National Health Insurance Scheme, the GET Fund. Look, these two things put together epitomizes the state of the economy. It's in tatters. There's no doubt about it. No matter how rosy you paint a picture, the reality, they call it...
Abraham says this is an economy, you know, undergoing some challenges. You say tatters. That sounds like over-exaggeration.
Far-fetched.
Well,
that's far-fetched.
Well, choice of words.
But appropriately use them.
We will bring the further and better particulars. You continue. Don't
I'm
pull
being
back.
honest with you.
No, there are challenges, but if you say tatters, I'll be surprised.
Don't pull back.
Everybody, we always say so. Challenges rather than crisis. Challenges. Look at the picture clearly. I get irritated, and I'll be honest with you, when I hear this thing about the election petition as a source of the problems.
That is true.
We said part.
It's pathetic.
We said part.
It is true.
I mentioned several factors.
The water crisis.
I mentioned several factors.
The energy crisis. The fiscal deficit.
We've solved that one.
All those things preceded the election petition.
Look at this statement.
All those things preceded the election petition.
And the petition came to add. That's the argument that I'm making. I'm not saying that the petition alone accounts for all the problems of the economy of this country.
I am saying,
but I'm saying that it made it difficult in the last 8 months
let me speak to the minister briefly. The Deputy Minister for Finance and Economic Planning, Kweku Rickett-Hagan. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on Newsfile. Hello, Mr. Hagan.
Yeah, hello.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Newsfile.
I'm sorry, the line is not very clear.
Right.
I could barely hear you.
Right, but I'm hearing you so loudly and clearly. Can you hear me now? Okay, let's try and clear the lines there and get back to him to find out what the solutions are to the many problems that we are told of.
We can discuss.
Yeah, the point I was making. I mean, it's so obvious to everybody that all those crisis elements preceded the election petition. And indeed, they constituted a picture of poor management of the economy. It was not too long ago. No, you can shake your head, but this is clear, it's manifest. Go back and listen to the themes of election 2012 campaign. And the things we were told had happened to the economy, the dramatic improvements in all the sectors of the economy. And then within a twinkle of an eye after elections, you are challenged with such huge fiscal deficit, water crisis, energy crisis, inability to pay, to effect statutory payments within a short period. That's an economy that did not have any stability inherently. It's an economy that lacked internal stability.
An economy that was running a single-digit inflation cannot be said to have lacked, inherently lacking.
I remember somebody once asking for whether we are doing the appropriate linkages between the inflation, interest rate, and CD depreciation. You remember?
I see.
It was a source of crisis in this country.
The minister is back on the line, Deputy Minister of Finance and Economic Planning. Mr. Hagan, thank you. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay.
Yes.
Now, first of all, confirm to us that your ministry, and for that matter, government, has not been officially alerted of some international donor partners withdrawing their support, albeit temporarily, to the government?
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners. I don't think that is actually the case. I'm sure when my minister had a press conference a couple of days ago, he did actually indicate that the support or the pledges from our development partners, not actually coming in, the way we thought they will disperse. And there are actually a number of reasons why that is the case. And number one, and we are not running away from this fact, is that they had some difficulties, basically to do with the deficit situation that we have. And that it is not about the deficit itself, but they wanted to have a clear understanding as to how we got into that situation. And more importantly,
what is the difference?
To understand how we are getting ourselves out of that situation. And we've been having we've had various discussions with them to explain to them. Don't forget, these are development partners.
Is there a temporary? Is there
sometimes much better than we do?
Is there or is there not a temporary hold on aid grants?
No, some of them are actually disbursing, but the monies are not coming in, as much as we would expect.
Some are disbursing and some are not.
Involved in this, and we have other countries, even though they are together as a group development partner, but some of their decisions are unilateral.
Right. You just said
some of them disbursing, you have others dragging their feet.
Right. And what's the reason for dragging their feet?
And as I said, there are a number of reasons. And the first one is what I've given you, that they had concerns as to the deficit and the debt levels, and they wanted us to give them a clear indication, as to how we got ourselves into that position. And as I told you earlier, these are development partners who have a good understanding about our economy. That's why they are development partners.
All right.
Some of them have lived in this country, for many years. So we did. It was like a checklist, which was presented to us as to how you got yourself in. So
I asked.
You have to tick the boxes with them.
I asked Mahama Yarga.
As I have given, if you will let me finish, please.
Right.
One of the reasons, as I have given you, is to do with the deficit level and the debt, the debt levels that we have. That is one, and that's what I've explained to you. They wanted a comprehensive, understanding of why we got ourselves into that position, and also want some kind of aggressive measures that we have put in place to address the issue. So that is one.
Right.
The second one, as we know, that these countries themselves, in recent years have their own difficulties, or even in recent months have their own difficulties. And of course, remember that the monies that are given to us are their taxpayers' money. So as they themselves have difficulties with their economies, they begin to scrutinize some of these supports that they give to other countries. And therefore, they have put a much bigger lens on this development money than they have probably done in the past. You cannot also run away from the fact that the political situation in our country, has also contributed, maybe not to significant amounts, but to some. Obviously, when you have a country where elections are being challenged, anybody who is giving you funding, or any investor or anyone who is coming in with money, will probably want to sit on the fence and see how things turn out. So these are some of the reasons, that have probably caused the kind of situation that we're in. But as I'm telling you, some of them have started dispersing.
Right. Now, there are people who would expect that whether there is an election petition or not, what they expect from you is not a complaint about the election petition and what its impact has been on the economy, but what you should have done to ensure what you set yourself in the 2013 budget, which was to achieve fiscal prudence and sustainable, debt management and so on. So if we are having these concerns, it's an indication that you haven't done well in that area. And I put that question to Ms. Ayarga.
Well, we haven't done well for many years in many areas, And one of them is if you are a country that still depends, on others to significantly support your budget, then when there is a slight problem, it becomes like the West African gas pipeline. If you don't have your own gas and you are dependent on something coming from somewhere, then when there is a small interruption, you have a problem. So this is, as we become a lower middle income country, we need to begin to start thinking that all these grants, concessionary loans and other things we get are going to dry out gradually, because nobody is going to support your economy if you think that you are relatively a rich country now.
All right.
It's beginning to show in loans that are given to us by the World Bank, which has been reduced from 40 years to 25 years. So we need to start thinking out of the box. It is for that reason that we went to the market to get this Eurobond that we went for, so that we can replace expensive debt in our economy and also plug some of the gaps. If we hadn't gone, because we were having difficulties getting, development funding, some of the monies that we've gone for elsewhere, like the Eurobond, are being used to address some of the short-term problems that we have.
Right.
As we continue to depend on foreign money to do things, then we are going to have the difficulty. So gradually, we need to move away from these things, and some of the measures that we have introduced are being done to address some of these problems, so that gradually Ghana is now, for the next 5 or so years, going to be a transitional country. As we become a middle-income country, it's going to be transition. And as we transition, our partners are going to be withdrawing some of the, benefits that are given to us. So we, as a country, need to think smart and fast to replace some of these support that we get.
Apart from the Eurobond, which is a major solution that you are looking at, what else are you looking at, particularly when you have acknowledged that for the second quarter, for example, that industry recorded negative growth? You want to do something and to make sure that industry will grow and grow faster, because people need jobs and the economy has to expand.
Absolutely. You are absolutely right. I mean, the only way we can make our economy sustainable is to grow the economy, to be able to create jobs, so we can even tax more people, to be able to bring money in, because basically, the government raises money to support its expenditure through taxes. And if you create a good economy, that is when you'll be able to get good taxes paid. As you will recall, we had problems at the beginning of the year as a result of energy, the energy crisis, as I did mention briefly, about the problems we had at West African gas pipeline. Now, if you are not able to increase production as a result of not having the energy to do the production, then obviously you will not be able to get more revenue to tax. So this is the problem we had earlier on. So as we have resolved the energy crisis, and now production is going up, then you accept that you will accept that the second half of the year to probably early part of next year, we are going to be able to inch up on the taxes that we were not able to collect in the early part of the year.
Right.
And mind you, people don't pay their taxes early. I mean, nobody rushes to the tax office to pay their taxes at the beginning of the year. It's only taxes by people who are employed that you're able to collect. But when it comes to businesses, they usually start to see the taxes coming in at the middle part of the year.
Right.
And there has been increase since the beginning of the year with the amount of taxes that are coming in now. But we had these difficulties at the early part of the year. And that is why my minister said that we had a short-term liquidity problem. Ghana is not broke. We need to understand this. If you say a country is broke, then that country basically is insolvent.
Right.
And we couldn't have been able to do anything.
Okay.
We need to put these things in perspective and admit that we do have challenges. We've been honest with it. We've been upfront with it. Now, the most important thing is to discuss the solutions, the things that we are doing. That is the most important thing. And that is the only way we can get our people out of poverty and improve the economic life of our people. Not just always going on about, the problems. We need to talk about the solutions.
I see.
And we are doing.
But if you keep telling us about the problems, they may be played back to you. But
yes.
finally, we are. Yeah. Before you take leave of us, Mr. Hagan, before you take leave of us, we will be discussing the tariff hikes, and we are aware that government is has a plan to cushion Ghanaians against the hikes. What should we expect? What form is this cushioning going to take?
Well, you see, just the same way as the removal of petroleum subsidies and others. You see, we have been subsidizing basically on a blanket basis, in this country, and that people who benefit from subsidies are not actually the people that we try to target. So it is important that some of these things we're able to claw back on some of these things and rather look at the people who actually need it. And these are some of the things that we are doing. We remove the petroleum on subsidies, and mind you, removing petroleum on subsidies.
I mean, if you got me right, sorry, I meant to ask you about what we should expect in respect of the mitigation measures that government has announced it is going to bring out. What should we expect?
Are you talking with regards to the tariffs or utility?
Yes.
Yes. So that is a picture I'm trying to paint to you, because you can't just take the utilities. The subsidies were both on petroleum and utilities, and part of the program that we have pursued this year, starting from the petroleum before we came to the utility, is a picture that I'm trying to paint to you, and the measures that we are putting in place to really, you see, when it comes to the utilities, and I'm sure some of the people in your studio have addressed the issue, is that we realize that we are not putting enough investment into the utilities area because they are heavily subsidized, and even for people to come and want to put up, energy plants and other things, they realize that it is not attractive.
All right.
Because we are not getting the right prices, and it's as a result of that the PUC, as an independent body, has addressed that issue. Now, we as a government will then have to look at it and see where the difficulties are, because obviously by removing these subsidies creates difficulties for people.
Okay.
So we need to look for the right people that we need to target to give them the necessary support so that we're able to cushion them against these price increases. Mr.
Kweku Ricketts-Hagan, thank you very much for your time on Newsfile.
My pleasure.
He's a Deputy Minister for Finance and the Economy. Kweku, you just finish in a minute, and let's move on to the tariffs issues.
Fine gentleman, fine talk, same old story of a journey to nowhere. See, this point about election petition and its impact was within the period of the election petition that we got the Eurobond of $1 billion. Is that not right?
Right.
What are we talking about? That private sector international finance capital market. That's where we went for the Eurobond from. We had the election petition running. Yet that people in that sector or institutions in that sector had enough confidence to deal with us.
It was oversubscribed.
Thank you.
So that tells you that we didn't have a bad economy.
Thank you. What it means is that nobody should factor the election petition in the crisis situation in which we are.
Not at all.
In the absence of any serious quantitative analysis, impact analysis, why should I waste my time on that? It's an excuse.
Is it not a logical, fair point to make that investors would have been hedging?
Logical. No, but I've just told you that that's the private sector finance capital. And we went and they oversubscribed.
And we said they have confidence in the economy. That's what they said.
And you said so. So that's the point I am making.
Right.
Their own story defeats the excuse that they are putting forward. Look, also when it comes to the IMF, World Bank, and the governments, they knew exactly the level of stability of this country's politics and had no problems with the election petition. They knew and had no problems with it. It's not an excuse. Let's banish that thing out. Now, the point about winning ourselves, I thought we did it. We tried. Perhaps not in absolute terms.
Kufuor announced that boldly in his time.
And there was some progress on that score. 2009, we reversed that trend and went full scale back into the IMF World Bank things because we said the country was broke. I'm not being told that the country never gets broke. But once upon a time, we were told the country was broke. So on that basis, we went back straight to the IMF.
Right.
Well, I mean, let me just chip in.
Okay, but before that, let me put outside what I think is very useful.
I didn't fit the last point. If you allow me, my very final
right.
point. The other point is about this compensation for workers. I still find that difficult. I heard, he said 77% of something. That was Akosombo conference. There was this issue that TUC raised about segmenting, finding out which categories of the public sector workers. In the absence of that, that is also not a sufficient excuse. To be honest with you, I think what we are having is a picture of physical indiscipline, lack of prioritization of public expenditure. That's what we have. Misapplication of public funds, diversion of them to target areas that are not productive.
Thank you.
That's all it is. Bottom line. Safini.
Except that you are not giving examples
such
of what? For example, what
look
you're
at
saying.
the dubious payments of judgment debts of dubious validity. Have you listened to the proceedings of the Judgment Debt Commission? And how he lamented that it's looking as if we have some pot of cash sitting somewhere and people are misapplying. Didn't you hear that? That's classic.
Well, let me just...
I just wanted to... It informs us in our discussion, and from a very good source, that there are issues with the release of multi-donor budget support funds by some donors, but other lending and disbursement of donor funds in projects totaling some $4 billion is happening, albeit at a slow pace due to slow implementation at implementation unit levels. Rather, the Ministry of Finance is holding back on more borrowing from development partners for projects, preferring to use more Eurobond money to finance these projects. So this is to help us to distinguish between multi-donor budget support, which goes straight to budget funds and project funds as well.
And project funding is happening. That's what it's saying.
Look, project financing, yes.
But the one that you have the freedom to use the money, they have issues there.
Because they're talking of deficits and debts. Is that not so? That's what the deputy minister was saying. They are concerned about the levels.
Yes, the budget support. That's where there's an issue.
Precisely.
But with the project financing, most of the projects also required counterpart funding. And that was why we went for the Eurobond. And we indicated when we were going to Parliament for approval that a lot of that money is going into the counterpart funding so that we will be able to unlock
you said 204 Ghana million
unlock the project financing aspect of the loans that we have with the donors. So that has been addressed. Now let me just respond to a couple of things.
So you do that briefly. I take you briefly, and then we take a quick break. Return to look at the tariffs, proper, and what government is intending to do about them.
There's no doubt that there are challenges with fiscal discipline, and this government is putting in place measures to deal with those challenges, both at the ministry level and at the level of Ministry of Finance. The whole Give Miss platform, which is a mechanism for ensuring that there is greater accountability and greater discipline in the use of government funds, is being implemented. So there is a problem with fiscal discipline, but measures are being put in place. I mean, it didn't start today or yesterday, and the judgment debts that you're talking about didn't start today. And it didn't start yesterday.
Payments.
And judgment debts
of dubious validity.
Yes, judgment debts of, in quotation, dubious validity have been paid as far back as when MPP was in
Give me
office,
examples.
and as far back as when I believe previous governments were in office. So the issue is that we are now putting in place mechanisms for really opening up, investigating, finding out the source of the problem so that you can stop it. That is what is happening. I mean, there's no better way of running a country than ensuring that there's openness if we hadn't gone through the process of the Judgment Debt Commission, would you have known the exact details of how these judgment debts occurred and how they are being paid and etc.? So I think, yes. So the point that I'm making is that yes, there are issues, but the fact is that there are measures being implemented to address those issues, both the judgment debts, the issue of fiscal discipline, the accountability mechanisms at the ministry levels through the gift miss platforms, and beyond that, the deputy minister started mentioning some of the measures. For instance, if we look at the debt profile, what we owe, you find that most of the debts are even owed to state-owned enterprises. And most of the borrowing are done on behalf of state-owned enterprises. And the finance minister has decided and gotten cabinet approval that henceforth we're going to get these state-owned enterprises to borrow on their own balance sheets. And so these are measures to ensure that there's greater accountability and efficiency. And we're going to review the whole arrangement where they're able to use revenues that they gain from their activities to finance these debts. So there are a lot of measures that are being put in place to address these challenges. And that points to an efficient management of the economy. You see, you point to the problem and you point to inefficiency, but you fail to see that many of these problems have been there with us historically for a long time. And as we move from a developing, to a middle-income economy, and we are transitioning, as the deputy minister said, a lot of support measures are being removed.
Yes, but
and as these support measures are being removed,
you gave the impression you had done that.
As these support measures are being removed, we are beginning to see the areas where we need to plug. We need to put in place mechanisms. No, I think that even today, the advanced economies, they have challenges. The fact of being a first world doesn't mean that you will not have economic challenges.
So we knew that.
Even America has challenges.
We all knew this.
Europeans have challenges, even though they are a developed economy. So we must admit the fact that yes, there will be challenges. But let's examine the mechanisms and measures that we are putting in place. And I'm saying that this government is being efficient in terms of the mechanisms that are being put in place
fatigue out
to solve the problem.
Relative to this rationalization.
Now,
There's a serious fatigue out there.
Gabi, let's hear you. Yeah.
People are tired. Listening to this.
We are in serious crisis. And some of us forecast that by August 2014, if you're not careful, the government will shut down without any support from the opposition, as we are seeing in America. And I tell you, it's because of the fiscal situation. Let me give you an example. Last year, for instance, you set a target for yourself that you borrow from the domestic market 2.7 billion, and you ended up borrowing 7 billion.
Incredible.
A target for yourself that you borrow 2.7 billion from the domestic market. You ended up 7 billion. Over the last 8 years, he's talking about election petition. Over that period, they borrowed 8 billion. In the 8 months of the election petition, over 1.1 billion on an average a month.
What is your source?
I'm coming. My source is a
Bank
of Ghana. Why we think of Please.
Let's
stop the propaganda and let's
from where?
Please, I beg you.
You don't just throw figures about.
Look,
Gabi, it's a legitimate question to ask you what your source is.
I just told him Bank of Ghana.
So move on. I'm disputing that. Okay, so
what's the contrary view?
There's no such figures from Bank of Ghana, he's saying.
There is not. Your figures?
No, I didn't bandit figures around. No, he's not banding. So tell us what the figure is if it is not what he's saying. Yes, Gabi.
Yeah. Now, when you look at it, and you know the difficulty is, I think the Chronicle call it Mahamanomics. And they said borrow and borrow and borrow. It is, what is happening is, you tax, you borrow and spend. You tax, you borrow and spend. And you borrow more to pay debts. So what is happening now? Look, government can even borrow as much as 27%. I'm talking about all these state institutions that they are allowed to go and borrow. If government is borrowing that high, at that rate, and is going out there to take all the money, and is taking the money not for productive stuff, but to pay debt. It's gone out now for about 600 million bonds. Okay? It is to pay debt. So what you're doing is, you are running into a vicious cycle of borrowing and borrowing more to pay debt. And whilst you are doing so, you're crowding out the private sector. Industries are suffering. Utility prices have gone up. Industries are suffering. So you can't raise enough taxes So you have to go and borrow more to pay debt, and you borrow and borrow and borrow to pay debt, and there's no productivity. Let me tell you.
So you stop borrowing. Is that
No,
part of
but
the
I'm
solution?
just saying it's because we don't have a strategy.
No, because a while ago
Let me tell you why we don't
you
have
were
a strategy.
complaining about the government not being hedgy about borrowing.
It is a government without strategy. Let me tell you, if you have strategy, my brother, you don't go and overspend on stuff like Maslock. You don't go and overspend on stuff that are not necessarily even critical. You don't pay for like secondary subsidies, education subsidies. You don't pay for GET fund, and yet you invest in LESDEP, you invest in GIDA, and all these things, and you pay more than what the budget are. And look, what is happening now? Even, what's this? They set up this ministry. What's it? Tony Edu's thing.
Yeah.
It's supposed to
monitor and evaluation.
They're also broke.
They are broke. NDPC is broke. So you're asking yourself, what really is the framework? Because even these things, you're supposed to have set them up to make sure that you're on track.
When you listen to Tony Edu, he sounds as if it's not just a question of being broke.
I agree.
But it's a question of what the government priority is.
Absolutely.
The government may not, the president may not want his
he became redundant.
Yeah.
And you know what is happening? Look, at the moment, let me tell you how the difficult situation we're in. Usually when you talk of budget deficit, what it is that you spend more than you put in the budget. Sure. Isn't it?
Yeah, that's
what is happening now, okay? We are running a budget deficit by underspending. And you know why you're underspending and running a budget deficit? Because your revenue targets are not being met. So you are spending more than what you are raising, and not hitting your target. And you know what that means? Look at capital expenditure. We are below capital expenditure. Even goods and services, we're about 400 million Ghana cedis below what we targeted this year. So what it is that the productivity, even businesses are suffering, and all you are doing with the borrowing is to pay salaries and to pay more debt. And my brothers, I'm telling you, if by August this year, this government doesn't shut down, then it must find a way to go around it, because
you don't believe in the solutions that they are proffering.
They have no solution. There's no solution, because is
it the case that you think that you have a superior solution or they don't have a solution? Because the minister just told you.
Let me tell you. What solution? Let me tell you what has been happening. Okay?
Okay, do that in a minute, because I need to take a break at this point.
A typical example. A typical example is this GIDA thing. It is, let's not joke with it. Youth unemployment is the major issue in this country. You spend 1 billion in 4 years, and you can't tell us the impact of that on youth unemployment. 1 billion in 4 years. Tell us the impact. So basically what it is that, would it give us any political advantage? Let's spend money there. We forget about priorities, and what will give you political advantage is what you spend.
Let me remind you.
It is, to me, listen, it is a sad situation.
Gabi,
let me
stop
just
here.
when you finish, look, I can give you an indication of the areas where
what it means is that we'll continue this discussion and end. Right. Thank you very much. Let me remind you that you have to stop buying printers, scanners, and photocopiers in every single office in your office. You don't have to do that. You have to be smart and go to Valex Lease Equipment Limited, where they will lease it to you. They will lease a modern multifunctional equipment which can scan, copy, and print. Good news, there are no fixed rental charges that you have to pay. You simply pay as you copy or print, and scanning is absolutely free. You can scan directly to email and open with pen drive for free, copy and print wireless to the same equipment. And the good thing about all of this is that the toners, cartridges, repairs and maintenance are free, supplied freely, and you will get them everywhere in the nation. You can locate them here in Accra at Osu Akwaje near XFM, or email them at valex@yahoo.co.uk, or call them 0540-482-857 or 0540-482-838. Valex Lease Equipment, your affordable document management solutions. And I've just been telling you about MTN earlier. You are one of a kind. Yes, everyone is different, even with how you use your phone. MTN understands how unique you are with different tastes and preferences. So, whatever your likes, MTN has something special just for you. Dial *515 hash today and let MTN treat you to awesome offers uniquely designed for you. From airtime, SMS, and data, MTN just for you is uniquely yours. Follow MTN on Twitter at MTNGH or MTN Ghana. MTN Ghana. Welcome to the new world. MTN everywhere you go. And let me tell you briefly too about Star Assurance. Star Assurance has got everything good that you need to be associated with. Now, you made it happen for them, so they are unbroken patronage of their response is a thoughtful one. Insurance package that has earned Star Assurance the prestigious CIMG Insurance Company of the Year Award 2012. And yes, you did it. And this is to you, their cherished customer. And they are dedicating a dedicated team that will take care of you to continue to offer you cutting-edge insurance policies that give you peace of mind and power to achieve your set goals. They work to protect your properties and businesses when the expected and the unexpected happens. With branches located all over Ghana, they are focused on building partnerships that last a lifetime. Talk to Star Assurance at 0302-240-632 or visit www.starassurance.com. Star Assurance, CIMG Insurance Company of the Year 2012. Star Assurance, your solid partner. We'll be right back after this break. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. You're watching us on your multi-TV. This is Joy News Channel. You're listening on Joy 99.7 FM and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. Your text messages 1422, and also you can post them on our Facebook wall or send them to newsfile@myjoyonline.com, and we'll share them with the rest of the people who are listening to us all over the world. Suf bin Suf writes that I agree totally with Kweku on this issue. The government seems to have no plan at all. Let's see what happens in 2014 and I even wonder how the 2014 budget is going to be. Franklin Kojo Nyamiche sent in this one from Tamale. He says, I don't understand why Honorable Ayaraga is taking Kweku Bako on for using the word tortoise. In fact, that is an understatement, to say the least. It appears the only thing working and which is real is that there is a country called Ghana. The minister should come again because the economy is not only in tatters but crawling as well. Ata Imoro sends this one from Wellency. I am happy the leadership of our great party has kicked against allowing sitting. Okay, this message will be done later. We are now dealing with issues that affect you and I directly, the economy. Bonti Benjamin says, did I hear the deputy minister saying that we go out to borrow from other countries, taxpayers' money? For God's sake, what are we doing with our internally generated funds and the monies we make from our natural resources? Let's be innovative as a nation and desist from create, loot, share, and bold deceit enterprise. All right, thanks for your messages, but it doesn't hurt to be very civil in what you want to say, and I'm saying that because I am finding some of the messages on my page here and just unable to share them, because if you do that you just lose the opportunity. So put it nicely and I'll share it with everyone who is listening. Patrick Jesse says something. I think we must go. Okay. Okay, we must go to Mugabe, the Mugabe way. Why do we have to take taxes from people and use it to pay salaries? We have natural resources. That is what we should use in paying salaries of public sector workers. And let's use the taxes for development projects. These donor agencies, it is not their people who are in control of our natural resources. So they can do whatever they want with us. Withdraw aid grants, whatever. Okay, thank you for that message. Right, thank you, Jonathan. Talking about an issue we said was not important. We just wanted to pick one or two comments about it and move on. All right, this is Eja Kwawudi says, Samson, it's not surprising that donors are withdrawing their support because they have come to realize that we are misusing the monies they are giving to us. I'm sure you are listening to all the explanation that is being given. Edmond Ajiman says, going forward, Ghana needs to set a debt target to improve its fiscal policy to help reduce huge deficits, which will continue to escalate, though. I'll take a final one from Gilbert Richmond Roxon. He says, there's a lot of revenue in the country that we have refused to collect. People deliberately do not pay their taxes. A lot of state resources are embezzled and mismanaged, according to our numerous auditor reports. As a country, we need to make conscious efforts to retrieve all monies that have been embezzled, from judgment debt right down to the last civil servant in the Auditor General's report who has embezzled our very little funds. We should stop the huge allowances we pay ourselves, and the few I have mentioned are enough to give us cash for development. We are growing as a country, and donors cannot continue spoon feeding us. Thank you very much. I said that was going to be my last text message, and I meant it. We're going to the tariff matters. The tariff matters. We are done with these. The first part of it about the budgets. I think we can move on. Otherwise, we will not. We will not finish the discussion.
He'll find a clever way to bring it in.
We will not finish the discussion.
I'm not looking for a clever way to bring it in.
Now, let me bring this to your attention.
This is a very transparent platform. How can you find a clever way of bringing it in?
The NPP.
It's very much
the NPP held a press conference. The CPP released a press. They give a press release. The TUC also had a press statement. Now, the TUC is categorical about it. It says the tariffs represent insensitivity, that the amount, the quantum that was allowed was just too much, and that the government should suspend the implementation of the tariffs as announced, the hikes as announced. The CPP captions its press release, money does not solve all problems, thinking does. It thinks the government is not thinking and should do a lot more thinking, and says that we should there should be a reversal of the tariff hikes, just like the TUC is asking. The NPP didn't say anything differently. It's also saying almost the same thing, that the reasons that have been given for the increases are not good, and that everything that is happening is because of mismanagement. I will start on that note with Mr. Yaga. The tariff increases and the developments that have followed.
I think it's important to understand the structure of things so that it will inform the debate. Now, we have utility service providers. Most of them take the commodity from state-owned generating entities. For instance, VRA, and we also have private providers. Now, when a private provider produces a commodity and is selling, he or she has to sell at a price that would account for the cost of production and then, of course, some margins, some profits. But utilities are matters that government wants everybody to be able to have access to. So we continue to invest. We also continue to try and attract private investments into the sector. Now, what we have is an arrangement where there is a regulatory body. And that regulatory body is the PURC, Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. It is an independent body. It is an independent body with interest groups represented. For instance, we have TUC there, we have AGI represented, we have consumer associations represented, and etc. What are they supposed to do? They are supposed to balance the interests of the producers of the commodity and the consumers of the commodity so that we can sustain the system. So what has happened is a situation where they have gone through the normal processes of engaging with all the parties, utility providers, consumers, and etc., interest groups, through a consultative process, and have come to these levels of tariff increments. I mean, all of us have cause to be concerned about the levels. But I think that interest groups who want to get involved in the process of reviewing it must also be informed about what mechanisms are available for seeking remedy. You hear political parties make certain statements, like you said the CPP and other parties have made statements. I would have been happy if they just went through the processes for seeking review. Because in the PURC Act, there's actually a procedure where if PURC comes to some conclusion regarding tariff levels, interest groups can intervene and really try to seek an explanation. And if they are unable to explain how they arrive at those tariff levels, to seek a review and to challenge the existing tariff levels. But if we don't go through these processes and we resort to making political statements, I think that we end up really causing a lot of damage to our institutions and why we set them up. The whole morning we've been having discussions about the debt levels, the unsustainability of our debts, the way that we are going, and etc. If you take the budget and if you take the debt that we owe and you look at the list of entities that are owed, you will see that the energy sector has been one of the sectors that has been necessitating the borrowings that we have been discussing. In fact, if you just go through, and I have the list of state-owned enterprises here, and then the debts that we owe them, you'll find out that most of them, that we owe huge amounts of money, is as a result of the need for us to provide the utilities with certain, crude oil and other things that they need to be able to generate those services. So there is a case for rethinking the existing tariff regimes. Of course, the levels people have complained about, but I think that the interest groups that are making complaints should go through the proper processes for seeking a review if PURC is unable to convince them that the existing levels are reasonable and they constitute a proper balance of the concerns and challenges of utility providers and the challenge that consumers are also confronted with. I have been talking to consumers, and yes, they are concerned about the amounts involved. But then also, sometimes if you take the amount that people in certain neighborhoods spend on water, you would find out that if we have efficient, functional system for distribution of water by Ghana Water Company, they would end up paying less than what they are presently spending on water. I mean, go to Adenta, some communities like Adenta, Majo, and other places, where you find out that the tanker drivers are a big industry, and people, if they compute the amount of money they spend buying water, at the end of the month, if we really had a functional Ghana Water Company that is able to reach everywhere with reliable, portable water, you would end up spending far less than you are actually spending buying these services and commodities. So I think that, yes, there are concerns, there are challenges, but let's channel them through the appropriate processes. Even when I read the NPP statement, they were very clear that they are not against, in principle, price increases in terms of utility services and etc. What they are looking out for is the extent to which it will promote the efficiency, and then also they are looking at accountability issues and etc. And I think that is where the focus of the discussion should be. Okay. How do we ensure that as the prices increase, we ensure that these institutions are also efficient in both the generation of power and then the production of water and the distribution to the consumers? I think these are the critical areas that we should be focusing on.
The NPP statement says that there still exists major administrative and technical inefficiencies which must be worked on. It says, besides the current situation where over 48%, almost half, of the chemically treated water that is produced by Ghana Water is unaccounted for, can no longer be tolerated. Beyond this, about 25% of tariffs of metered water is not collected. What this means is that it is only about a third of all water produced by Ghana Water that is paid for by about 1/3 of persons who otherwise should be enjoying the facility to sustain their operations. They're talking about electricity, where you have almost 50% electricity generated is either lost through inefficient transmission systems or not paid for. The CPP says that they find the reasons given particularly insensitive for the following reasons, and they say for the first half of the year, besides the strain of all the fuel and tax increases, we were saddled with serious power outages, which became popularly known as Dumso. This did not only visit untold hardships on the people, but also placed serious financial burden on the common man. And this included they having to purchase generators, fuel, flashlights, and notes, candles. And they're saying, look, all that is happening is that you're just refusing to think. Otherwise, you would have made contingency measures.
I can forgive the CPP because for a long time they have not been in government. But for the MPP, who just left the reins and who presided over the government of this country, should be telling the people of Ghana these problems. The question to ask is, what did they do as a government to stem the tide? And I expected them in their press release to tell us that in their time, this is what they did. But this is absent. So what are they doing? They are just recounting the problem that they have handed over to us. What are we doing? If you ask the ECG guys, they'll tell you that this transmission loss has been reduced drastically, and that it used to be higher than what it is now, even though there's room for improvement. So this is not a government that is sleeping and not addressing the problems. Look, we are the natural allies. Let me tell you one thing
the NPP draws your attention to. It says that mismanagement is responsible for the inadequacy of gas. The NDC has been in office for almost 5 years. What were government's plans for gas procurement to power our thermal plants? The NDC government, after all the promises on energy delivery in its 2008 manifesto, went to sleep when it came into office in January 2009, hoping that gas supply from the West Africa gas pipeline would be sufficient for our purposes.
So they are not aware that there was something wrong with the gas pipeline and that was not our creation.
They are saying
Indeed.
that being aware of
That
what the problems were with the gas pipeline, you should have been doing something else.
Oh. So are they saying that we were not able to bring on stream some other energy into the system? Haven't we? In fact, we have been able to go to Navrongo to tap solar. Did they do that in their time? You see, MPP, by the CPP, I can understand. But the MPP have no moral right to be talking about it. Indeed, we did not promise the people of this country that on the 31st September we will solve a problem, when there's no 31st September in the calendar. We have been able to take the matter on its own. Look, it was during this election period that we were able to contain the situation of Dumso. Yet, the MPP has not indicated in their press release that at least this government has been able to provide electricity and has been able to resolve the Dumso. You see, we are the natural allies of workers. And as a social democratic party, we will listen to the cry of workers. The problem we have as a government is how...
TUC says you should suspend it. If you will listen to them, TUC says suspend it.
Yes. There's also the issue of how to make these services, I mean the utility services...
No, you haven't answered that question. You said you are the natural ally of workers.
Yes.
TUC is the umbrella body of workers in this country.
Yes.
They say this is insensitive, stop the implementation.
Oh, there has been a technical committee put together by the Vice President who indeed met all the stakeholders. This is a government that is committed to meeting all the stakeholders. We did that and we have put together a technical committee that will address the problem. The problem we have is how to make the utility services viable. We will not want to see them collapse. Indeed, if you think that these tariffs increases are high, try buying a candle. And you see,
Dr. Rekruprobe's argument has suffered such a start. Many people have referred to it and told him that he was so wrong.
No.
If you increase the price of a candle, it doesn't affect any part of the economy, really.
But see,
if you increase the price of electricity, manufacturers are telling you that they have to lay off.
I have heard consumers talk about, and that was during the Dumso, talk about availability, that they don't care if you increase the prices, but just give her the electricity so that it is sufficient for us to continue our work. I think the focus is more on the availability of the product more than its price. But we can acknowledge the fact that as a government, we have to be sensitive to the plight of the ordinary Ghanaian. That we acknowledge. And that is why this stakeholder meeting was held. That's why the technical group was put in place. We will address it. We would be able to do something, if need be, about the margin. But it is important to also keep these utility services in business. The sustainability of the utility services is very important. You see, the automatic tariff adjustment was somehow suspended because of the fact that we didn't have a full complement of the mix of our energy sources. At that time, this the gas pipeline had problems, so you couldn't have continued with the automatic tariff adjustment when one of your sources was not available, because you needed all the sources to be able to put a tag on it, a price on it. But now that it has come on stream, I am told that we will resume the automatic tariff adjustment, and these matters will no longer be an issue where you have a high increment which Ghanaians will be complaining about. And so we are of the view that when the technical group is able to meet and then resolve this issue of tariff increment, we will be able to reduce at least some of the prices. But as a government, the viability of the utility services is also important.
Let me just chip in that it is important, as I said at the beginning, to understand the structure of things. The tariff increments are a function of the PURC.
That's correct.
Which is an independent body
That's
from
correct.
government.
There's also the argument that
Yes.
the tariff increases were supposed to have been done for, I think, the last 10 years. They have not been done realistically. And now we're just
last 3 years.
Last 3 years, right?
2010.
And what was the reason that they were not done? Is it not interventions, government influences?
Well, I mean, sometimes government wants to help, and that is where we have the issue of all these debts.
Right.
Because government has tried in the past to shield the public using these subsidies. But as you can see, these subsidies are becoming a major challenge for all of us because ultimately has to be paid for one way or the other.
Gabi, if the ordinary Ghanaian has to suffer this much, is it also not a good case to make that those who are in charge of these utilities, who are supposed to exert their independence to ensure that the increases were done in the piecemeal manner that it was expected to have been done, should also take some responsibility?
Well, I think I've said it here before. As far as I'm concerned, the PURC it has shown its incompetence. That is not ready to do what is required of its mandate. And to me, the anger should first of all be at the doorsteps of the PURC.
Dr. Rekubebe calls their mediatory role as awam.
Oh, it's very awam. I mean, not many times you get me agreeing with Rekubebe, but yes, it's very awam. It's as if, they are...
Why is it awam?
It's because really...
When you have an organization that has TUC on it, AGI on it, Consumer Association, I mean TUC alone, I mean AGI alone, I mean these are very strong
TUC is now telling you that they spoke against those quantums.
Because the bottom line is, have they been able to explain to us why all of a sudden you want us to pay 80% on electricity? All of a sudden. There's absolutely no explanation for it. Because you're supposed to be there to make sure that the increment is done in a kind of gradual manner so that we can plan properly and it doesn't throw all businesses and even households into some sort of, if you like, disconnect as to how
I'm told that they held regional, dialogue sessions and consultations. I mean, they've been talking for several months. People haven't been listening. People haven't been paying attention.
It's not about talking.
And interest groups haven't been paying attention.
It's about acting. It's about acting. Because, I mean, look, what has happened that all of a sudden there has to be
He's talking about their independent role. They have consulted extensively.
They have been consulting. I know they even came to Parliament. They had a meeting with the parliamentary committees. They went through to the various regions.
It is not about consultation. Yes. It's about doing your job. If really we've seen maybe the cedi depreciating, there are certain things that happen. Crude oil prices have gone up, and as a result of that, the prices have to go up. Let it go up. But don't wait because there's an election. Don't wait because there's an election petition because there could be a rerun of the election. Don't wait and all of a sudden you throw 80% increase on us. And then you think you've done us a favor because initially you mentioned 150%. Oh, it was 150%, now it's gone up to 80%. And then you have my good friend Moses Asaga to have the impudence to tell Ghanaians that we've been sensitive. That is why.
But your good friend, you don't attack him. This is your good friend, you don't attack him.
But you shouldn't attack Ghanaians.
Is that what you do to your friends?
It's not a good
Is that what it means to be your friend? Strike my name off from the list of your friends.
It's to use the words of the minority, insensitive and outrageous. And I heard my brother here saying that, what did the MPP do? What did the MPP? Are you going to go back to what MPP did?
You have no moral right, that's my point.
No, it's not about morality. It's about making sure that we have electricity and that we can afford it. It's about making sure that I have water when I go home. I don't have to find money to go and dig a borehole and then have to find money to also refine. And how many people can afford that? So really...
Do you support the PURC? The TUC, they say government should intervene and get it suspended.
To be honest with you, if you suspend it, what do you do?
We're accumulating the problems we are complaining about.
Precisely. We ought not to have been here in the first place. I am very uncomfortable to say suspended. Unless they can come up with a formula that within a short but manageable period of time, you can have increases and people can plan properly. You know, and they think there's a formula that they've come up with. You know, but it's biting. And it's biting in the sense that it would even affect government's capacity to raise revenue because businesses will be hurt. Already, the mining sector, which contributed over 40% of our export earnings last year, is suffering. They're laying off workers. And a combination of two, world prices and also cost of production. And it's happening everywhere. You just show the figures. Industry is struggling. And, you know, look, at the moment, I think it was in December 2011, Dan Quincy held a press conference to raise issues about the gas plant. At the moment, we're supposed to be spending anything up to about $3 million a day on importation of crude oil. Is that what we are looking at? And if we had the gas from the Jubilee gas working, that would have cut it down by 1.5 million. We mentioned that 1.2 million, we could save 1.2 million a day at the time. And nobody listened. But, you ask yourself, it takes, if you ask any engineer in that field, we'll tell you, it takes anything between 14 to 18 months to do the gas project. How come 5 years? 5 years. We still don't have gas from Jubilee.
I return to you.
So these are the things.
I return to you
because they spend too much time arguing over who should control it.
I return to you to have you finish your submission by helping us appreciate what the NPP's biggest solution is in its press statement. The government has to be serious about capitalizing the electricity and water sectors, and this is where to get the funds. Public funds should be retrieved from Waterville, Isophoton, Woyome, and Jida looters and invested in these critical sectors of the economy. My question is, your viable solution to all these legitimate complaints that you have is to chase after controversial and immediately not available funds. Hold on. Let me go to the phone lines.
But you can't do that.
Hold on. I told you. I prompted you.
Did, but I didn't
now
know
let's go to the
going.
phone lines. We are privileged to be joined on the line by the Executive Director of the AGI, that's the Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Akwabwa, and TUC, Trade Union Congress, Secretary General Kofi Asamoah. Good morning. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Good morning.
All right. First of all, the response, did I have the response from, is this Seth Akwabwa?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I suppose that you were represented in the meeting that was held with the Vice President yesterday, and that is seeking to bring forward mitigating measures. What are we to expect before you tell us about the impact on industry?
Well, a committee has been constituted to look into the whole issue. There were proposals that were brought to the fore, and the committee is supposed to look into the proposal and discuss it in the context of the challenges we have regarding industry, regarding residential consumers, and the utility providers themselves, and come out with some proposals to the larger committee, which was chaired by the Vice President, and then we'll take it off from there.
You certainly in the meeting would have had ideas and suggest to the committee what it should be doing.
Well, there were proposals that we should spread. There were even proposals that we should discontinue the implementation for a while. There were other proposals that were saying let's spread the implementation, let's stagger it, a certain percentage immediately. Further increase in, let's say, 2-3 months' time, and so on and so forth. These were some of the proposals that were coming up. But we didn't firm up any decision on it because they thought that there's a lot more implication with these proposals, and therefore the committee needed to look at it, look at the numbers, because in that particular meeting we didn't have the figures to be doing that thorough work.
So the broad guideline, as it were, is to consider whether to spread, to stagger it, or to suspend it for now, right?
That is not the only thing. I mean, we have to analyze the feasibility of that idea. That is what we're looking at.
You have to analyze the feasibility of each idea.
Industry.
I was asking that it is the question of analyzing the feasibility of each idea, each of the two major ideas.
Different ideas that came up.
And which would be more favorable to industry?
Well, I think that for industry, we've always been complaining about the level of increase because we thought that the jump was too much, and therefore it's going to have serious impact on the performance of industry. Because if the cost is going up that much, you have imported products competing with you in your own market, then it presents a big challenge. And therefore, any measure to cushion industry a little bit will help a great deal. As to the specifics, we think that the committee should look at it because we are also represented on the committee, and our ideas will come to the fore, and we will take a decision what is feasible and what is not feasible.
I see.
But I think that we could be targeting some specific industries, especially those that are highly energy-consuming industries, and energy constitutes a major part of their cost of production, and may even be out of business if you don't cushion them. So there are different scenarios we can look at.
Is it real or exaggeration, perception exaggerated when you talk about industries that may go out of business because of these tariff hikes?
Well, some specific industries may have serious challenges. I mean, if you take the steel companies, for example, energy constitutes over 30% of their cost of production. So if you increase such a major component of their cost of production in the middle of the year by 80%, you can imagine the impact. So it's a real thing. I wouldn't say all businesses will go out of, or all industries will go out of business. That is not what I'm saying. But there could be some specific ones that will be seriously hit. So we need to look at those ones and see how best we can help them survive under the circumstance. But we also appreciate that in all these, we also need to support the utility companies because the alternative is even more expensive. So we have to do a good balancing act to make sure that all the interested parties are okay.
So bottom line, if the hikes are kept at what they are presently, we're in trouble as a country, is it?
Well, there are challenges, definitely. I mean, if it is kept at this rate, there are definitely challenges, especially industries and the energy consuming one. There are challenges.
How soon, if you can help us with the information, how soon is this committee supposed to come out with these mitigating or cushioning measures?
Well, I think it's a bit difficult for me to make a pronouncement on this, but I believe a couple of weeks' time, the committee should be able to make a report to the larger group.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Seth Akwabwa. He's the Executive Director of the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, and as I announced to you earlier, the Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Kofi Asamoah, is on the line. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Right. You have asked for a categorical suspension of the implementation. Is that where you still stand?
Yes, that's the position. Our position is that the level of increase is just unbearable. It's unacceptable to wait for 3 years and then just come out with almost 80% increase. And this is against the backdrop that government gave workers only 10% salary increase. Various workers, both in the public sector and the private sector, did not get increases in salaries that is enough to be able to cope with this challenge. We're also coming from the point that we had a similar problem in 2010. And then stakeholders, like it was held yesterday, met and agreed that the way forward is not to wait and then bring a huge increase. And a kind of automatic adjustment could be done gradually. We were not against increase. But when you bring a huge increase like that at a go, I mean, nobody can be able to stand that. We made that decision. That decision was made not to work.
It's interesting you refer us to that particular occasion where you met with then Vice President John Mahama.
Vice President, yes.
Good. Do you remember what the solutions were? Did anything come out of that meeting?
Yeah, that meeting agreed that we should have an automatic kind of adjustment, which we don't have to wait for so long and then bring these huge increases.
And by your observation, by your observation, has that automatic, a formula been followed?
It was never made to work because of political considerations and other factors.
Do you expect that Ghanaians would expect anything good to come out of this one as well?
No, this one, yesterday we were called to a meeting. We had our own meeting to come, and we had to postpone ours to the afternoon. Yesterday's meeting and all whatever came out of it, our language was just clear. The level is unbearable. We cannot cope with 80% at the goal, and that there should be a reduction. And that is what we meant by staggering. We can't be able to wait for 3 years and then ask us to pay for 80% at the goal.
Okay, please clarify. Please clarify your position for us, because what we know you to have said is a suspension. Now you are saying you are for staggering and reducing the quantum. They are not the same.
From the word go, we were saying that suspend it, let's discuss. Now, flowing from the other meetings, we realized that perhaps that approach might not be the issue. So then the contention is that then the level cannot be paid. Let's reduce it. Let's stagger it and see what can be paid this year, what can be paid subsequent years. Subsequent year. The issue about the utility companies, they also made it clear that anything short of that means they cannot be able to function. And that VRA, for instance, said they have to be ordering crude oil to be able to keep their machines going. So in the midst of that discussions, then the contention is that we can't afford that level. So reduce it to a level that we can cope, given the kind of increases that we have. That we have received.
Mr. Samoa, tell me this finally. Have workers generally come to report to you about a certain impact, or is just the executive of the TUC that sat down and came out with the release that you had that said this is so biting on workers?
No, we have our way of receiving feedbacks from our members. If you remember, Tema District Council of Labour are so pressurized that we have rather been able to control them to wait for discussions to be held. We also know that industry is so several of our members are going to be laid off if this 80% is sustained. So the contention is that we can't afford to do that. And we make it clear to the meeting yesterday. After the meeting, we met our structures, and our structures are saying no. The entire organized labor met, and we are doing our press conference on Tuesday. It's said that we cannot be able to contain it. There should be a reduction.
I see. Finally, what is your expectation of the technical committee that you set up?
No, given what was done in 2010, we do not expect anything to come out of it. We acknowledge the challenges that the utility companies are going through, but we cannot afford.
So why did you agree to a setting up of a technical committee to look at what ought to be the future?
We were at the meeting, and that was the conclusion. Various stakeholders, several stakeholders were there. So the conclusion is that let's get into detail to have a scientific element of it. Yes, we agreed at the meeting that it could be looked at. We came to our meeting, and our meeting said no, we cannot wait to that technical committee.
And you don't think that your meeting is being unreasonable?
It is reasonable. I got to a meeting. We repeatedly stated our position that all those things will not solve, but it appears that's what the meeting was intended to do. So we left the meeting out with our decision. But when it was communicated,
I said finally. But tell me in 30 seconds, you are on the PURC. Why are you coming back now to complain?
Yes, we have been on the PURC, and we continue to be represented on the PURC. It has been a position, long-held position of the TUC, that our representation on any governance structure does not conclusively say that if that decision comes out and we disagree, we will not be able to say no to that.
Interesting.
So yes,
thank you.
We are represented,
right?
But the feedback was that we do not accept the conclusions made by that committee.
I see. That's a very interesting angle I'm sure people will argue with. But thank you very much, Mr. Kofi Asamoah. He's the Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress. Thank you very much indeed. This is Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM. You're listening to us on over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. Now, Multi-TV is undergoing an upgrade in order to bring you more exciting and entertaining programs. So Multi-TV is undergoing a satellite upgrade. While this is going on, you will see a signal upgrade bar on your screen. Please do not tamper with your Digibox or television sets when you see this on your screen. Please take note. Don't touch your screen when it happens. Okay. Gabi, just answer that question, and then I get to Mr. Bako.
I think it's that suggestion is pregnant with meaning. It tells you that government is not prioritizing.
I suggest to some that you don't have any solutions.
No. Isn't it? For instance, by the time this government came into, the NDC came back into office, the MPP had a program that by 2012. Our capacity would increase to about 5,000 megawatts. Among that was the Juale, some mini hydro projects, Juale, Paulugu, and Cobra and others. And at least, even before he died, Barry had found some money for it. They were diverted. The ones for Juale, for instance, were diverted for roads. So these are the things. The Bui Dam project was on. What happened to the...
Bui Dam has had phase completions.
I'm coming. There were these 220 megawatts. It's been left to rot now, haven't they? The Austin turbines and the rest of it. Although
Zakem thing, but I'm told it's ongoing.
It's now ongoing.
It's delayed, of course.
Absolutely, it was delayed. That was on course, but it was delayed.
I'm talking about what Rekube described as toy.
No. Far from it. There were the 132 megawatt thermal plant were on, but the bottom line is also about value for money. Because you can throw more money at a project than you need to. And if you go into some of the procurement at ECG, for instance, you find all these difficulties there. So to me, the solutions are about a government that appreciates what is at stake, understands that we need to have value for money, knows how to prioritize their spending. And like I said to you, there's absolutely no excuse why the gas plant is not working. Because it needs just 18 months to get it done.
It was supposed to be a brief reaction. Kweku?
Yes, it was brief.
Well.
Kweku, your party, the CPP, says it's about thinking, it's not about money. But when you look through, it sounds to me that it's rather about cash.
No.
Strategic thinking would produce funds, the investment outlays for you. You have to do strategic thinking, planning, before you can mobilize funds and target the appropriate areas. But let me deal with this committee thing. I hope this is not an invitation to yet another run of young committee.
Are you saying this to the TUC or AGI?
He's talking about the meeting with the Vice President, which has set up the technical committee.
Yeah. Who said tea was served? Who told the tea was
It's
served?
another invitation.
Tea was not served.
Committee. Yeah, committee.
Committee. Okay.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
We were told that 2010, a similar committee was set up with almost the same agenda. 2013, 3 years down the line, we are back to reforming another committee with the same agenda. Look, the issues that were outlined are nothing new. These are issues that have been discussed over and over again. The need to commit ourselves to the automatic tariff adjustment program mechanism. Is it new? They need some, in so doing, it means that if there will be increases, they will come in a very gradual, minimal manner. Is it new? It's not new. They need to invest in terms of the service providers. We all know that some of the equipment are about 20, 30, 40 years old. And they've been quite a lot of investment over the years as well. It's recorded. We know all these things. So really, I ask myself, what are we doing? What is it that we are discussing? This committee, what is it going to talk about that has not been discussed? The PURC framework, we are told the TUC is there, the AGI is there, other stakeholders are there. I'm sure they have interrogated all these issues over and over again. So really, what are we doing? Duplicating even what the PURC have been doing. That's what we are doing, is duplication. That will take us nowhere. That is Ghana for you.
It sounds to me that in the end, we're likely going to get a reduction, because they are suggesting that for them, they feel that the way to go is to stagger, the increment.
2010, we knew, we thought, we hoped, when the committee was formed, that we were going to get a reduction. What I'm trying to do is to let you see how frustrated the good people of this country are, because they are always taking on journeys to nowhere. Fine talk. I'll be honest with you. This epitomizes the failure of leadership. Period. My brother Amalba was saying that some party does not have the moral authority. I thought you promised us a better Ghana agenda.
And we are doing it.
And I thought those people failed to win the election because they failed, according to your logic. In any case, the truth of the matter is that you had an opportunity, perhaps many more years, to have cured the mischief. But when the NPP were in there for 8 years, you had the moral authority to prescribe solutions, to criticize them. So let's cut out that one. Let's be honest, let's cut it out. You had many more years to manage this Ghanaian economy than any other party, even more than the Nkrumah CPP. And we are where we are. So if we're going to talk of moral integrity, then you don't have it at all. But I think that will be a path that will lead us to no solution. So I'm not going to go there. I just wanted to.
Gone there and come back.
I'm just reminding you.
You've gone there and come back.
I wanted to remind
you. You've been there and back.
You see, but you see, the fact that okay. Ghanaians have given us the mandate. The fact that Ghanaians have given us the mandate.
Right, if you are done, we are going for a break.
To be honest, why shouldn't I be done? What else can I say?
Thank you very much.
We are where we are not. Not we are.
All right.
Where we are.
Okay, and as always, you know that my outfit is provided by Latida, so be on top of the fashion world with the latest in Latida's men and ladies designs in African print and linen dresses. Looking good is what they pride themselves in, and so their latest designs are in. So go get some, and it's very simple. You just call them on phone, and the phone number to call is 026 56 509 18, 026 56 509 18, or 020 433 4644, 020 433 6444. Thank you very much for keeping
to my submission.
Footnotes.
Sorry. The TUC,
right,
I think as a labor institution, should complement the dialogue process with flexing its muscles occasionally. They must engage in some positive action.
You are inciting them to...
No, I'm talking of legitimate...
He's not talking about social revolution.
This is incitement. Why do you sit here and try to incite the TUC?
Democratic positive
They are bigger than that. The TUC is bigger than that. You cannot incite them. But this is rather an insult to the TUC's own intelligence. They are big. They are so big they cannot be incited. I cannot incite them.
Are you suggesting that they don't have the intelligence to know when to demonstrate their muscle?
It is within their remit. I mean, to flex their muscles by engaging in legitimate positive action.
This is
so what do you say? What do you say?
To a demonstration.
They go into the meetings, do their discussions, and come hold their own meetings.
It's a strategy. You can complement the dialogue process by flexing your muscles. Indeed, it pushes the dialogue in the direction in which you want.
Right.
When they have a representation in the committee.
But that's the point. It's because of the futility of the committee as well as the PUIC agenda. That is why I'm asking for this complementation of the process.
That's why you're inciting them to go on demonstration.
Once again, Valex Lease Equipment is inviting you. Valex Lease Equipment.
Trying very hard to incite the teams to go on
Valex Lease Equipment Limited is inviting you to come lease a modding multifunctional equipment which can print, scan, and copy at the same time. There are no rental charges. All you do is that you pay as you copy or print, and scanning is absolutely free. You call them on 054 048 2857, 054 048 2857, or 054 0482838. Valex Lease, affordable document management solutions. We'll take a quick break and return to do the skimmings in the NPP, allegedly. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. I've got some of your messages. Henry Palmer says, why can't the government be truthful to Ghanaians for once? Now, workers are just praying that they will not wake up and be told that they can't be paid their salaries. Yet we say it is not so bad. How bad should it be for the government to admit that it is bad? It is it still the Bikeke? Kofi Amwako Jampo, Amsterdam. He says, okay. No, he started by saying now. He says now that our development partners are reluctant to release funds, government is cut pants down. It simply means Ghana is lacking vital economic managers who can think proactively, since Ghana cannot depend on foreign support to run its economy. And then Zalos in the USA. That's such a vast place. Tell us exactly where you are. It says about 70% of the population of Ghana are poor. The youth have no future, no housing, no social welfare, interventions for the needy, no job opportunities, nothing like unemployment benefits, poor public transportation network, and parents can't afford to pay school fees for their children, you mean? But the government continues to burden Ghanaians with unnecessary taxes, paying fat wages for themselves and driving in flashy and luxurious cars. Okay. Swezi Agblake. Sorry if I didn't get your name correct. I believe we should expand the tax base so as to generate enough money. I buy an apple or orange in Europe and pay VAT. I get the same apple or orange in Ghana and pay nothing. Decentralization is a key to solving our socio-economic problems so that leaders will be held accountable by their immediate voters. Well, when some are crying about the tax,
when we impose some of the misrepresentations, to say that 70% of Ghanaians are poor is not consistent with the data anyway, even the World Bank.
He made generalizations. That's what he made
generalizations that I think that are clearly.
He didn't say 70% of ministers. He said 70% of Ghanaians.
Listen carefully. Let's be realistic. Is that okay?
And is it the case that 70% of Ghanaians do not have jobs?
He didn't say 70% of ministers. He said 70% of Ghanaians.
Please. So let's.
Okay, I think those who are listening can make that.
Because it's important.
It's important
for themselves. Because there are people outside this country who are watching and who are listening and etc.
Yeah.
Every international organization in this world has agreed that Ghana has come very far. Ghana is one of the leading countries in terms of reducing poverty and creating opportunities. And so let's stick to the facts.
Mr. Rega, like I said, I don't think you need to worry yourself about it. I'm sure that those who are listening can tell that, statistically it's not correct.
Not everybody.
So when we are posting messages, we should try and not be overgeneralize the issues.
It
Now
depends on what you call poor.
Okay.
Well, unless you're talking about poor by Gabi standards.
Okay, now let's go into.
There are very few of us who are.
Let's go to opposition politics, and the largest opposition party, NPP, appears to be having problems right after the election and the election petition. Now it looks like things are falling apart. The center cannot hold. There are proposals that are coming forward for MPs, incumbent MPs, to be maintained for an early Congress. Now, the National Executive Committee met just 2 days ago, and when they came out, it was a very terse press release. It didn't really say much, except to give an indication for me by my reading that you would have constituency polling station elections before Congress, and that they denied also that sitting MPs will be imposed on the people. What is happening in the NPP? There's a professor of politics, a doctor in the KNUST. He says what you're doing is a panic situation. You are being panicky. You are not thinking through what you need to do.
I think, to me, what's happening in the NPP is productive. It's productive. There's a bit of, this, because look, there are two things that have been boxed into one, if you like. Because normally what happens is that immediately after election, you may have a period before competition time, okay? So immediately you get into the mode of finding out what went wrong and start talking about it. But even then, people are still preparing. But because the vacancies are not immediately opening, you still have time where you can just among yourself discuss things quietly and then find a way forward. The 8 months after the election, they sent a petition to court. The petition itself also underlined some of the things that went wrong in the election. After the petition, it's time for competition. And the time for competition also has coincided with the time where you reorganize, you readjust certain things in line with, if you like, lessons from the previous election, okay? So you would have a situation where, and particularly when those in charge of the process have said that they are up for re-election, okay? I mean, like the McMahon time, although even then, McMahon has said clearly that he wasn't going to contest, okay? There were still sort of heated debates because then he was proposing constitutional reforms. Same heated debate. And also, the constitutional reforms of 2009 made sure that the party gave greater ownership to its grassroots. So, unlike the past, where you may have discussions within just NEC, now these discussions have been thrown out there. So you have the rank and file participating in it. And within that, there could be some bloodletting here and there. That's why, because these are like, some punches of kid gloves.
How did these suggestions come about, these proposals, which the head of politics at KNSC, Dr. Amakwan, I think that's his name, he says, it speaks very bad of the NPP because if you want to let the MPs go unopposed, then your party itself, first of all, does not have internal democracy. And that is an affront of the 1992 Constitution. If you want to have Congress to elect a flag bearer before you go to the grassroots to elect polling stations, all of that suggests.
Now, first of all, I haven't seen any proposal. I've even seen the document that they're referring to. I haven't seen a proposal that's saying that MPs are going to go unopposed. The proposal was actually identifying the problems in terms of spending so much money within yourselves when there's internal contests, okay? And after that, especially in your strongholds, the competition, and it happens in the NDC. You see in Volta region.
It happens only in the MP.
No, let me make the point. In NDC, if you're going for a seat in Volta region, for instance, you know that the competition really is about being elected at the primary level, not necessarily at the general election. So they spend a lot more money on themselves.
Not in the NDC.
Forget it.
It happens in the NPP.
Well, people saw it. We saw their Blackers and the
Blackers didn't spend money. Fifi Kwete didn't spend money.
It doesn't matter.
Primaries.
We leave it there. We leave it there. That's fine. Okay? Go on deceiving yourself. So
nobody's deceiving
so
yourself. I'm telling you what happens in our party. So just stick to what happens in the NPP, what you know best, which is that you spend a lot of money on your primaries.
The import of what I was saying is that where is your stronghold, the competition is becoming the candidate, not necessarily competing in the general elections. Okay? So the party thinks that, look, we spend too much money and sometimes they are cream money and the rest of it. So how do we deal with this? And that suggestion said, in the ideal situation, okay, these MPs, I mean, for instance, if the party is saying that it won the election and the rest of it, regardless of what the court is saying, then it means there may be some other areas. And look, you're in a position, 2016 is the second term of this government. You want to get them out. And the ideal solution will be allowing ideal. As soon as you introduce the word ideal, it means you know that it's not necessarily practical. Okay? But you wish that, we didn't have primaries. It was a document, and that was in there, and somebody picks it up to come and say that they're going to impose candidates. So the chairman comes, even before this next meeting, the chairman came out to say there is no proposal for imposing candidates. Okay? I would admit that maybe the PR has not been perfect. I would admit that. But I think really what's happening is, to me, it is healthy. What is the issue? The party is saying that, look, there's a party that managed to get 24,000 pink sheets. It means at least there's something working at your grassroots level. So you can't say that your polling station agents failed you completely. But you've also identified, and through their own research, they identified, for instance, over 6,000 polling stations where they had serious difficulties. So you're saying to yourselves, look, these are the things. Part of the proposal is that should we elect flag bearer earlier than the rest? It's still within the constitutional remit. Okay, you brought this proposal, and what I find is that proposal appears to be unpopular. And if it's unpopular, what do you do? And I think I expect that the leadership will listen to the rank and file, okay? Because clearly, it has not been introduced for any candidate. It can be. Okay. So you listen to the rank and file. Next said they couldn't conclude. There were these issues. They'll go back next week. They all accept that the issues being raised by the document in terms of all the acrimony within internal politics are real. But there are issues with the suggested solutions. And I'm sure that they will find the way forward, but it shows a party that is vibrant. The fact that the opposition party is getting even more publicity than the ruling party should tell you something. They will sort it out within the next 2 months. There's nothing negative.
Do you find the reason for an early Congress convincing?
Well, you should have asked me. I don't.
Is it a matter
early in a sense before?
Is it a matter they should concern themselves with so much?
What is early? What is early?
That's what I was going to ask.
What is early?
Early,
because the argument is not about early. That's why I don't find it convincing.
My problem was with the sequence.
Absolutely.
The sequence that let the flag bearership race precede.
That's correct, and that's what I mean.
I think I find that anomalous. I'm told that it's happened before. I don't immediately recollect, but I think that it was such a proposal that had the potential to rock the boat unnecessarily and make the party lose its focus. So that kind of proposal I thought should have been put somewhere. But apparently they are going to discuss it. So. No, so it's up to them. That's their party. They have the experience. They have men and women of intellect and political prowess. They can go ahead. But I think that is unnecessary. That's my own candid opinion. Now, when I look at the statement that has been issued, we're told about 2 areas of misinformation were dismissed. Namely, that there was any plan to impose MPs on constituencies. There is no such plan. The New Patriotic Party continues to believe that elections are the best way to judge one's electability. The second misinformation was that the national executives are seeking to extend their mandate. This too was summarily dismissed. The national executives are working towards its replacement in March 2014 and the constituency and regional elections to precede the National Delegates Congress. We are now told these things are rumors and misinformation. I think they were apparently officially induced. Apparently, officially induced.
No, I don't disagree with you.
Yes, and so now
there are
who cause
suggestions.
now who
ideal
cause
solution, yeah.
So now who cause and create all sorts of distractions and confusion and divisions in the party. So unnecessary. That had been my position all along. I think this is a party with great women and men who have ideas. I don't share the ideological perspective in terms of Ghana's history. Of course I don't.
Oh, okay. Said Ghana's history, not
Ghana's
history. Not Ghana's history.
I've had collaboration with them in the field, in the trenches, against military dictatorship to restore constitutional normalcy. And I have no shame in doing so. But I'm talking of broad ideological, historical perspectives as to how Ghana was formed or developed and things. I have differences with them. But I respect the party and its track record in terms of its democratic credentials. There's nothing wrong with that, appreciating that point. But I'm saying that we're looking at today, the way, the mechanics, way things are being managed. I think there's a certain deficit in terms of how the leadership has handled post-election, especially post-election petition situation in the party. They could do better.
But Ms. Ayega, when you sit out there, you know, as and let's not kid about it, because the NPP is the largest opposition in the country, you know, capable of forming the next government. So what they do must matter to all of us. What do you say about this, the problem they are facing now, quote unquote?
Well, I mean, thank you very much. I usually prefer not to discuss the NPP for a number of strategic reasons. It's not about doofyasm. I think that no matter how hard you try, sitting where I sit, there's a tendency for people not to believe that you are genuine in your discussion of NPP, that your suggestions are not born out of good faith. Is that okay? That you clearly don't want the NPP
but then allow
to prosper. So
I should suspend this intervention.
He will rather let me talk.
So and that's why I generally am reluctant to discuss it. But I mean, just observing what is happening, I mean, you can see that there are strategic things that are happening. I mean, MPP has come out of an election in which it lost. They petitioned the Supreme Court.
It lost.
People are saying all sorts of things about the petition.
It lost.
I think that one thing that MPP has to learn is, and I said this some time ago here in this studio, that we need to learn how to accept defeat in elections. And I think that that is very, very important. I mean, what this country was taken through for 8 months, if it were not Ghana, if it was some other country, I'm sure we would all have paid dearly for it. But I'm happy that I'm a Ghanaian, and I'm happy that Ghana went through it successfully. Today we can talk about who is best, who is not best as a leader, etc. But we took our country through a very trying and challenging moment. And I keep asking myself whether it was really worth it and whether there was a real foundation for that.
Permissible?
Constitutionally permissible, but whether strategically is the kind of thing you want to take your country through, because of the risk involved. Now, MPP, there are people who are angling for the leadership of the party.
All right.
And some of them believe that if a certain structure is in place, it enhances their chances. Others believe that if some alternative structures are in place, it would enhance their chances. And for some, how early you organize the Congress may have an impact on their chances, and how late you organize the Congress may have an impact on their chances. And I'm saying this because I have been very involved in congresses of political parties, and so sometimes I can read what is happening. And I think that is what is happening in the NPP. It is the strategic interests that are pursuing structures on the ground that will enhance their various chances. So,
but they're not even doing it well.
Well, I mean, there are very few things that they've done well, you know. I mean, there are very few things that the NPP has done well. But this is what is happening. And so it will be important to observe closely as it develops. But as a party in government, we clearly want the NPP, a very strong opposition party, to continue to keep us on our toes. We don't have issues with...
Ekubako doesn't believe you.
He is a propaganda minister.
Ekubako doesn't believe you. Yes, yes, yeah. I would comment on the MPP because, there's a Supreme Court ruling that says that political parties are public entities.
That's correct.
So on that basis, I'll comment on them.
Is it Yevi versus Avelifo? Was it?
Yes, yes. So as a public entity, I have the right to comment on what they do. You see, what we see, or what you see today in the MPP is as a result of what we call the fallouts from the election petition. I knew from the onset that if the verdict went against them as it has gone, there are going to be problems such as this. So I'm not surprised if you ask me. You see, there are factions in MPP and they will not accept that. There is the Achim faction, which my good brother.
You know how many Achims are in Ghana?
Is part of it. There's the Ashanti faction.
An Achim faction.
There is the Kufuor faction and there's a Akufo-Addo faction. But they will not accept this reality. And you see, because they do not accept the reality, you find within the party some squabbles. You find people disagreeing, sometimes violently. But if they come to terms with the fact that, look, in every grouping, people gravitate towards one person or the other. What is important is how to synergize and put these factions together and then utilize the strength in the party. But this is what they are failing to do. This is what they are failing to accept. I was scandalized when I heard the MPP make a proposal that city MPs will not be contested. And the explanation given was that because they are city MPs in their strongholds, spend more money in the internal competition, they think that they should allow them to stay and continue to stay like Mugabe. Even though Mugabe is my role model.
Did I hear that?
Yes, I like him. I like somebody who will stand up against people who are not thinking properly. But you see, the MPP has refused to understand that they have been priding themselves as a very democratic party. And one of the features of democracy is competition. And so to come out with that proposal was, for me, one of the bizarre proposals one can ever think of. And I'm happy they've come with a press release disagreeing with that. Early Congress, why are they asking for early Congress? You see, there are, and Honorable Ayarga has made a point. People are tying their fortunes to
the executives.
Executives are tying their apron strings to some people's waist and necks. And so they think that if that person flies, they fly with that person. But the same argument that was used to do away with the McMahon administration. And what was the argument? That they have failed to ensure victory for the MPP and that the executive failed to retain them in power. That same argument can be used today against those same executives. And I think that it is for them not to tickle themselves, and it is for them to accept the reality that at the moment their party is in disarray. What they need to do is to collectively accept that and come together. We will need a strong opposition, as Honorable Ayarga has said, but I think that they are not doing themselves any good. They are shooting themselves in the foot. Well, at the end of the day, it is for them. Nobody will come and rescue them from the doldrums. It is for them to understand that for them to remain viable in this country, they must adhere to principles that are part of the democratic principles. I disagree with them, and I think that they have seen the wisdom. No MP should be retained. They should allow all of them to contest. There shouldn't be any early Congress. I've heard them say that they wouldn't be. And I think when they do that, they will have a viable party that can come back. The MPP has strength, because if you can use 1.5 regions to get 5 million, and we will win everywhere and also get 5 million, they are not appreciating their strength. But I will tell them that they have strength, but it's their own undoing, and they should think about it.
Thank you very much. And Gabi, I've got messages coming from coming from either
the
members or
I think the half is Eastern region.
But the votes, some come from the other.
No, they are just from the 1.5.
1.5. People who are either members of the party or sympathizers of the party who are very happy that there is a group that is standing up against what we were told earlier was supposed to be what was to take the attention of the neck.
I think it was really about drafting problems, because you've written a proposal and you say the ideal solution will be, because clearly then what it means. I mean, you're a lawyer, and you are
a street lawyer.
You're a street lawyer.
It's a street lawyer.
Yes.
The finance is sound.
Absolutely. It tells you that you think that would have been the solution, but you know that it won't be the solution. So it can be. But this document came out, so immediately the chairman had to come out to say that no. But it was the harm had already been done.
Yeah.
I think, to me, this is what I predict. I think is going to happen. I wasn't at the NEC meeting, but I was told President Kufuor spoke very well. I was told Jake put a very spirited defense of the reasons behind his proposals, because really it's not. People think it's to benefit Akufo-Addo. I mean, I've said it before.
He doesn't need it.
But Akufo-Addo doesn't need it. It's really, would it benefit the party? That's what people should focus on. And at the end of the day, I think what will happen is because apparently they all agree that
that's going to be your second prediction.
Yeah.
Your first prediction has been on the economy. What is going to happen by August?
Let me tell you something. You see,
let me finish his prediction.
No. I'm tempted to just advise him to apply the brakes there. You see, the political parties law and the constitution that enables the existence of political parties requires that parties must be organized along democratic lines. That is a constitutional imperative.
But what is it going to do?
I'm coming. That is a constitutional imperative. For a party that for years have been touting itself as a democratic party to have a proposal that is in its nature so undemocratic. So undemocratic. And to finish the point.
He's not making a point.
Let me finish.
Why is not an intervention? Let me just finish.
And to suggest an ideal position, an undemocratic proposal as an ideal position which they should aspire to. For me, there's something fundamentally wrong with that.
Okay.
And no matter how it was framed, no matter how the drafting
let me tell you what it is.
Look,
you go to other political parties, Conservative Party and the rest of it. Okay? Places where you think that they have practiced democracy a long time. What they have is a deselection process. Why do you think they keep returning the same MPs? Because what it is that unless the party says that they don't want this MP, you are deselected, then they go for primaries. So it is more like automatic that if you are an MP, you are going again until the party, the local party decide that, look, we don't want you, so there's primary. So if somebody says an ideal solution, but even in this ideal solution, if that was the case, still there will be some performance indicators if the party doesn't want you. So somebody has brought a suggestion. It's a party. The chairman came out to say it is not going to be discussed about imposition. Okay? And it wasn't discussed. So why do you want to make a case out of it? My prediction is that the party will come out with a solution, all right? And that solution, I can assure you that it won't necessarily be, it won't be about the fears that people have. They all agreed, apparently, at NEC, that the polling station issue is crucial. And how they get it right is crucial. But from all indications, you're not going to, I will be surprised if they have the flag bearership before all the others. From all indications. And it's a needless hassle. Sure. The reasons behind it were to me, were good. But the solution itself appears to have difficulties. Really, I expect that they will discuss it. National Executive Committee will come up with a proposal. It will go before National Council, and this party will triumph. I have absolutely no problem about it. You know, the fact that they are free to talk about it publicly, and I think also tempers have been quite good. they haven't really set things overboard. There have been one or two things. You know, I have been accused one or two ways.
All these things
okay.
were not held by the earlier premature endorsement.
I agree.
Thing.
I mean, things could have been done.
Distorted
good you didn't use that word. I agree with you, but I think that, you know, there's leadership. I understand President Kufuor did absolutely well. He brought his point, and the thing, so they will get it right. And Kweku, look. After, I believe, in about 2-3 weeks, they'll come out with their own timetable. Elections will be held. And then the party has, and next year is the year of discontent. The year when the TUC will listen to Kweku Bako and come out boldly to ensure that we have a good government.
It will be a year of progress. It will be a year of progress. I can assure you.
Absolutely.
The next year will be a year of progress.
It will be a year of progress for Ghana in terms of us seeing who will be the best president for this country moving forward. Who will be a better president,
Alexander
a better party.
Podono in Kebbe writes, NPP is a democratic party, so any attempt to undermine democracy will be resisted. With all the efforts within the laws of the party and land. When you're spending
more money on your primaries
those behind
than
this criminally minded proposal must be ashamed of themselves. How can Democrats fear competition? All right, thank you very much. And he ends by saying, then we should allow the NDC to rule us.
It wasn't about competition. It was about the cost of competition.
All the MPs Absolutely. Behind such a proposal should be watchful. I agree. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. This show is repeated on this same channel at 9:30 tonight. So if you missed out, you can catch up again. Thank you very much. The show was brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of MTN. Everywhere you go, Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature. Valex Lease Equipment, your affordable document management solutions. Star Assurance, and Latida. My guests have been Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Abdul Malik Kubako Jr., Media Relations, Information and Media Relations Minister, Mahama Ayariga, Abraham Amalba. He is a member of the NDC's legal team, and Gabi Asari Ochre Dako is Executive Director of the Dankwa Institute. I am Samson Ladi Ayenini, and the guys who've been behind the show have been Sami, Emmanuel Ante with Sedem, with rare artillery supports from wherever he is, and Yaya has been making sure that you got stable, nice pictures on television to watch. Thank you very much for watching. The news is up next, and I need to inform you, you know about the joyous celebrations who are in town and are putting up one of their masterpieces for Ghanaians to watch. I'm talking about the Ghana Praise. So there have been some reductions in the tickets that are available. 1,000 tickets for the concert have been subsidized. So now you have 500 regular tickets going for 20 cedis and another 500 VIP going for 40 cedis. These rates are only available at Joy FM. So come pick one. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.